Hey, what is going on? It's Adam here with Retro Repairs, and time for another video. So as you can see in front of me, I've got 8 NES cartridges, and I picked these up as part of a large bundle of games that I recently got at a local buy for $10 total. I'll make sure that video is linked so you can check that out, but these particular 8 games have been identified as having save batteries. So quick way that you can tell generally on the NES cartridges, if you flip them over and you see a gold label on them, that means that they've got a battery in them. And it even says this game pack contains batteries. So that's usually a quick way. There may be some exceptions. I'm not 100% positive about that. But yeah, that's one way that you can find out. And some of these games are, pretty good games. They're all in really, really good condition. Unfortunately, some of them have labels on them from being originally a rental game. But, despite the fact that the rentals, the labels are in really great shape. But what we're going to do here, open them up, test the batteries. We want to make sure that the batteries are in fact going bad. Some of them could be in really good shape still, but the fact that they're 30 plus years old, they probably should be replaced. I got a lot of comments in my last video about this. A lot of you wanted to see a video with a whole bunch of battery replacements. One comment made a good point, saying that it's not really necessary to replace these until they actually go bad, as it can decrease the value of some of them as collectibles. So namely, something like Dragon Warrior, for example. Still worth a good amount of money. My thought on that point, though, is that is a good point, and the batteries are probably okay for now. However, 2 things. Firstly, these were stored somewhere cold. When I got them, they were cold and there was condensation on them. That decreases the lifespan of your batteries. So that is something to keep in mind. They might be okay now. They might not be okay in 5 years. Also, it can leave them more prone to exploding and damaging the board, and that certainly decreases the value of these. Thirdly, I'm not reselling any of these. These are going right in my personal collection, as I actually don't have any of these particular games. So I might have Final Fantasy. I'm going to have to look, but it doesn't really matter. So I'm going to replace the batteries. They're going to be good for another 30 years. Let's get started. All right, so we're going to start out with this particular game, Crystalis, I think that Swords of T, Crystalis, I don't know. To do this, pretty straightforward. I'm going to kind of explain the first one in a little more detail and then just kind of roll through them from there. So you're going to need what's commonly referred to as a game bit screwdriver. This is the smaller size, and it's used to open up these security screwdriver bits. Yeah, let's just get right to it. Let's open this up. Obviously, you're going to need batteries, so I have CR2032 batteries. If you need any other type of materials, now's the time. So let's dive right into this. 3 screws to remove and open her up. So let's take a look at the battery. So it does look, I'm pretty sure that's the original battery. They often use Maxell batteries, CR2032. So the easiest way to do this is going to be to use a desoldering gun. However, I'm going to be doing this using a desoldering braid. And the reason for that is I recognize that probably most people watching do not have a desoldering gun, and it's not a cheap bit of equipment. The one that I have runs about $300, and it's considered more of an entry-level desoldering gun. They can run hundreds and hundreds of dollars. However, desoldering braid, I think it's like $7 for a pretty good sized spool of it. You can do this with a cheap soldering iron. You don't need a whole lot of investment to start replacing coin cell batteries. So let's get right to it. So I've heated up my soldering iron. It's at about 590 degrees. Just do a quick test. It should melt the solder. It's not doing a great job, so I'm going to turn it up a tiny bit. All right, so I'm going to do that again. Got it up to 650. Let's see how she goes. Okay, oops. Gonna cut off the spent end. Now this one's got a lot of solder on it, so might need to do a couple of passes with this. All right, that might be okay. So let's try bend that back and see if that does the trick. Okay, so that side's loose. This side has still got some solder on it, so gonna hit that again with the desoldering braid. Just clean that up a touch. So that should do the trick. Should be able to wiggle that out. And if so, looks like we have one stubborn connector here, still not going. So there's two ways that you can do that. You can heat this up and just pull it out and it will work, or you could put more solder on and try and remove it again. I'm gonna do a combination of the two. I'm gonna put a touch of solder in here. So heat up the joint, put some fresh solder in. Now, just going to heat up that joint one more time with my other hand, pull the battery straight through the hole, and then we can clean it up after. There we go. So battery is out. I'm going to clean off my tip. Get the desoldering braid ready again, and let's just tidy up that joint. So we do have a bunch of solder in the middle of that hole. So let's try, just throw some flux in there. And that's the trick with some of these old boards, is sometimes you just have stubborn little bits of solder. Oops, out of frame here. So we're just going to fill that all with solder, let the old solder mingle in with the new stuff, and see if we can take it out in one or two passes here. And there we go. We've got our hole opened up. Just going to clean that up a tiny bit more, as there's still some solder on there, but it's not too bad. It's just on that pad itself. There we go. That's better. Okay. So that's all cleaned up. Just going to tidy up those pads now with some isopropyl alcohol and a Q-tip. Just want to get that flux residue off. You see how gross that's coming out? It's all that is flux. It's not a bad thing. It's not battery leakage or anything. It's just leftover flux. Right on. So, sometimes the boards will tell you the polarity of the battery, and that's extremely important that you get it right. This board does not appear to. However, the old battery has two different size prongs. There's a thick one and a thin one, so you can only fit them in one way. The thick one is positive, so I just want to make sure that my new battery is going to line up the appropriate way. The new batteries do not have different size prongs, they're just the same. So positive is the same orientation. Or did I just do with that battery? Whatever. Positives on this side. So this being the positive is going to fit right in there, like so. Flip her over. Oops. Flip her over just like that. And give it some flux. I like to use a lot of flux. It just really helps to make the solder joints better. Apply some downward pressure just to make sure the battery is fully in there. Heat up the pad and the contact for a few seconds. Add some solder. On this big one, you're going to have to dump a lot of solder in as it's a huge pad. Just like so. And you leave the soldering tip in for a couple seconds after you add the solder, and that should work nicely. And then we're just going to cut off the tip. Actually, not enough solder. This side it has a little empty bit. This really takes a ton of solder. There we go. All right, so that one's in. Oops, still not. It took so much solder that it wasn't even fully cooled. So that's going to turn out to be not a very good solder joint. There we go. All right, now let's do the other one. Heat up the pad, heat up the contact, dump a bunch of solder in there. Hold it for a second, slide it up the leg. And good. Be careful touching around here. This is all a ground plane and it's connected to that negative contact of the battery, so it will heat up quite a bit. All right. So there we go. So that one's actually not too bad. This one's a better solder joint. So we're going to trim those legs. And we've got a nice replaced battery. Take a look at the pins here. The pins are in good shape. I had given these a bit of a clean when I got it. If they are bad, you can take this as an opportunity to hit them with an eraser and some alcohol. But they work well and it boots up at first time. So I'm not going to over scrub them and start to ruin some of the finish. Just going to add some screws in here. And then this one is done. So I'm going to go through the next ones a little bit quicker. I'm not going to be describing as much of what I do. And yeah, there's not a whole lot more to say about this. And there we go. Crystalis, or Crystalis, however you're supposed to say it, is done. I'm going to put it in its sleeve. Put that off to the side. Alright, so Dragon Warrior 2 also has those rental stickers on them. So we're just going to cut them for now, and I'll make my decision later on whether I want to remove them or not. Truth be told, I don't really hate the stickers. They kind of tell a little story about how this cartridge came to be, and I mean, they also show that it's genuine. They didn't rent out knockoff cartridges, or at least probably didn't. All right. So Dragon Warrior, what did I say? 3? 2. So this is the cartridge here, or the board. So the batteries here, they have a lot of solder on them. So what I'm going to do first is just going to add some more solder. Sounds counterintuitive, I know, but it does help with desoldering, especially if you've got a lot of solder on these joints. So just heat it up. Add some fresh stuff. Good to go. Same thing down here. Right on. Let's clean that up a touch. Get some of that flux off, that spent flux. And for this, I'm going to use my desoldering gun. So I have a Heiko FR301. It's a very nice gun. Like I said, it's about $300. Is considered more along the entry level of things, but it works very well. So I'm going to try this for this blob here, see what kind of difference that makes. It sounds like I need to clean this actually, but see if we can get it off before cleaning. Let's do under this pin as well. Yeah, definitely need to clean that. But comes out no problem. Got some nice clean joints in there. So I'm going to use the braid just to tidy that up a bit. All right. Q-tip, alcohol, clean. Flux. Battery. Easy process. Once you kind of get going, you should be able to knock these out pretty quickly. Oops. Let's put it on the right side of the board. How about that? In theory, in case you're wondering, as long as the polarity is right, it shouldn't matter. Also, as long as it fits in the shell. The battery might have stuck up just a little bit too much and caused some issues. Oh yeah, I didn't flux that side. Okay, good. I wanted to make sure that I didn't accidentally put some flux on the wrong side of the board, and I did not. Flux, flux. Trim the legs, and done. That's in there well. And another game, re-batteried. All right, let's see how long it takes to do this from start to finish. So, going to set a stopwatch and starting, make sure I got all my tools and everything handy and nearby. I'm gonna trim off some of this braid, so this is good to go. So gonna start it right now. So different location for the battery, but again, the exact same process. Look at the size of those solder blobs. What's going on here? Oh. All right. 4 minutes and 1 second. So not bad. Pretty quick job to do one of these batteries. It could have been even faster. Spent a little bit of time messing around with the screws at the end. Could have done things a little bit quicker, but 4 minutes to swap out a battery. Like I said, not a hard job. And once you kind of get into the flow of things, if you have a bunch of these to do and a bunch of batteries, you can knock them out in almost no time. Okay, next on the list, Zelda II, Adventure of Link. Very impressed with actually this cartridge. It's in nearly flawless condition. There are some scratches on the back, but the front is really in great shape, and it's a real cool looking cartridge. Anyways, let's dive into it. And the inside's black. I wasn't really expecting that, but cool nonetheless. Hopefully that's genuine. I don't know. If I've never opened up a Zelda 2 or an original Zelda for that matter, so leave a comment below if you have. Is it supposed to be black? I'd be curious to know. So between takes here for this, or between, I guess, recordings, for this cartridge, I did clean out my gun a little bit. So it wasn't too bad, but I think we could get a little better suction. Oops. Jeez. Well, that did not do a great job. So let's try her again. Solder it up. One thing you can also do to help, if you kind of put some tweezers or something in there, apply a little bit of pressure, you can help to move that battery out. There we go. And battery pops right out as you desolder. There we go. Nice and clean pads. So let's note right away, so this one here, there is a positive symbol under the battery, or where the battery would go, so it helps to make sure that you're getting it the right polarity. Otherwise, always just aim to have that negative on the ground plane. It's not always the easiest, like this for example, there's a big plane here for the positive terminal, so in this case, either works. Look at the marking, go for the bigger ground plane for negative, or bigger hole for positive. And another one, Zelda II is good to go. Excellent. So, back into its sleeve, on to the next one. Original Dragon Warrior, so let's dive into it here. Okay, so the negative again is just giving a little hard time coming out. Probably once again because of how large this ground plane is. Like it goes all the way from down here, all the way up around here, just a gigantic ground plane. So let's add some more solder there. And I'm going to apply some pressure to the battery while I remove it. Hopefully just pull it straight through that hole. There we go. One more touch. Perfect. And come on. There we go. Battery is free. Let's touch up those pads with the desolder braid. So one thing I do want to note, you'll note that I'm not folding the legs over. I'm leaving them straight and then just trimming them. I personally, it depends on what I'm doing. I hate when I'm trying to remove components and the legs are folded over. Folding them over helps to hold stuff in place, small things especially, like this capacitor at the corner. These legs are folded over, and those make sense. But things like batteries that have giant tabs and they're easy to hold in place, even with your fingers, I don't see any reason to fold those tabs over. Just trim them like that. As long as you're not having, as long as the legs aren't going to be contacting something, shorting out, maybe touching a ground plane or a RF shielding in a console, I'd like to just leave them straight. There we go. And last but certainly not least, we have Dragon Warrior 4. So let's get into this. So one thing I do want to point out, these screws are a mess. So it definitely looks like someone tried getting in here before. So hopefully we can even get them out. So let's look at that. So you know what this is? This looks like melted plastic. So somebody tried to get into this game before, and what they did is trying what I call the melted pen trick. So you take one of those, you know, those classic clear blue Bic pens with the clear black, or sorry, the clear white shell or body, whatever you call it, fuselage, I don't know. The clear white body of the pen and those blue caps. You take one of those, you take a lighter, you soften the end of it, you put the pen in here, it molds around the screw and you can twist it out. Doesn't work overly great, but in a pinch it can get you into these security screws. Someone clearly tried this and either maybe they succeeded or they didn't let it cool enough, so they failed, who knows. But that's my guess as to what was going on here. Because it does not look like anything was tampered with here. The board's in good shape. Battery looks original. 92, December 92, that would make sense. Yeah, I don't think they succeeded in getting in here. So I'm wondering if they tried that because the battery was dead. Who knows? But then again, this was sitting in an attic for however long, so that also seems unlikely to me. So let's try zoom in a touch here. All right, so this should work. Looks like it's reasonably clear. So last one here, Dragon Warrior 4. Just wanted to give a nice zoomed in look at how this actually looks when you reflow these pads. So let's clean off my tip here. Tin the tip. All right, so all we're gonna do, just touch this, should heat up. There we go. Dump a little more solder on. Let it go. So you can kind of see the color start fading away. Becomes a little less shiny and a little duller. That's just kind of showing you that it's starting to cool. All right. There we go. So we got some new solder in there. Just in time to desolder it. So once again, I'm going to use the little the tweezer trick that I was talking about. There we go. Nice and clean hole. So let's find the other one right there. Apologies if that wasn't the best shot. I feel that moved quite a bit, but we get the idea. All right, steady. All right, so flux it up. That one's bent a little. There we go. And solder time. All right, so let's take a look at those. Not a ton of solder. Well, there is a lot of solder, but it's a very big plane. And then this one, it's lots of solder, but that's still a good solder joint. Maybe a tiny bit leaning on too much, but it'll be okay. And clean it off one last time, and then we are good to go. And that is the final of my 8 cartridges that required battery replacements. There we go, Dragon Warrior 4. So that's going to be it for today. hopefully some of you found this entertaining. Hopefully it's not too long, but I don't know. I got a lot of feedback saying, yeah, make the video with 7 or 8 of these, and so here we have it. So really appreciate you watching. Make sure you leave me a comment below. Let me know your thoughts. Like the video if you liked it, of course. Subscribe to the channel. Be among the first to know when I post new content. But yeah, once again, thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you next video.